I'm coming back for a bit. Have some drinks ready to welcome me.
The words on my phone screen made my mind go blank. The sender was Robert, my ex-husband. Robert had disappeared when I was giving birth to our daughter, Jessica. No matter how many times I tried to reach out, he was always unreachable. After struggling to raise Jessica on my own and finally deciding to move on and live positively, that message arrived. Just hearing from a man I never want to remember makes me feel sick. And that arrogant tone, coming back like he's doing me a favor? Who does he think he is? I just want him to leave me alone and stay out of my life. Don't disturb my life, which is finally back on track. With that thought, I ignored his message. But the following week, loud shouting came from the front of the house early in the morning. When I opened the door to check, there was Robert yelling about something. Even though I had ignored his message, Robert was there, as if he had forgotten he'd been gone for years. The moment he saw me, he marched over, his voice full of agitation.
Emily, when did you get a fancy car like this? Only someone really rich could afford a car like that. This wasn't here when I was around. Did you buy it?
As I tried to shut the door on him, a man stepped out from inside the house.
That's my car.
The instant Robert saw him, his endless chatter stopped, and his eyes widened in shock.
My
name is Emily. I was born to a father who runs a celebrity agency and a stay-at-home mother, and I was raised with lots of love and care from a young age. I attended a slightly better school than most kids my age, got almost everything I wanted, and was given the chance to take plenty of extracurricular lessons. I guess you could say I was a rich girl. Because of that, I grew up pretty sheltered. And when I entered college, I was overwhelmed by how different I was from everyone else. When some classmates talked about going shopping after class, I said I wanted to join, but they told me,
"You might not find anything you'd want, Emily, since you're kind of a rich girl."
On another day, when I heard some classmates were going to a pub, I said I wanted to come along, and they were surprised.
Wow, even someone like you wants to go to a pub? Didn't expect that.
My classmates were all really nice, but every time they called me a rich girl, I felt like there was some kind of invisible wall between us. As those days continued by my junior year in college, everyone around me gradually started preparing for job hunting. Since I was supposed to take over my dad's company, I didn't bother with job hunting, and one of my classmates said to me,
"Must be nice, Emily. You're taking over your dad's company, right?" "No struggles at all. I'm jealous."
At that moment, I realized that this was the reason for the wall I had felt. Maybe to my classmates, who were desperately job hunting and working hard to secure their futures, I looked like I was just in college for fun, knowing my career was already set. When they said, "Because you're a rich girl, Emily," that probably carried that kind of meaning too. But it wasn't like I was going to college just to play around. I was seriously studying business management to prepare for the future when I would take over my dad's company. That's exactly why my classmates' words stung so much. From that moment, I decided to give up taking over my dad's company and, a bit behind everyone else, started my own job search. However, having grown up as a sheltered, rich girl, the job hunt was much harder than I had imagined. I painfully realized just how low my value was in the real world. Even so, I didn't give up and kept applying, and in the summer of my senior year, I finally got a job offer. The fact that I had earned it with my own effort made me incredibly happy. After graduating from college, I joined a publishing company. At first, there was so much to learn, and the unfamiliar work left me physically and mentally exhausted every day. But gradually, my performance improved, and I started receiving more praise. Most of all, I was thrilled to have coworkers and bosses who treated me without any barriers, and that became my motivation to keep working hard. A few years after I joined the company, I was assigned to accompany a photo shoot for a fashion magazine. The shoot was for Robert, a model whose popularity was skyrocketing at the time, and I remember there were more female staff members than usual. Robert had stunning looks, a toned physique, and could pull off any outfit flawlessly. I stood near the wall of the studio watching the shoot, and I can't forget the excited squeals that erupted every time he changed poses. I remembered seeing him ranked as the #1 most desirable celebrity boyfriend on a TV show once, and it made complete sense. Because of my dad's work, it wasn't the first time I'd seen a celebrity up close, but Robert's presence was far more overwhelming than anyone I'd met before. During a break in the shoot, I discussed the magazine layout, editing, and which photos to use with Robert's manager. I thought about saying a quick thank you to Robert before leaving, but he was constantly surrounded by female staff, and there was no way I could approach him. Reluctantly, I gave up and just thanked his manager before leaving the set. To Robert, I was just another staff member. Even if I had spoken to him, he probably would have forgotten about me soon enough. While I was thinking that, a few weeks passed after the shoot. On the day of the final meeting with his manager to wrap up Robert's page, Robert joined us. I guess he was eager to see the page he'd be featured on. That's what I thought. But as the meeting wrapped up and I was about to see them out, Robert quietly spoke to me.
Hey, you were at the shoot the other day, right? I really wanted to talk to you, but there were too many people around. Here, this is my contact info. Reach out if you want.
He handed me a note with his contact details and walked away. I couldn't believe it. Is something this amazing even possible? The top model everyone wants as a boyfriend giving his number to someone like me, just an ordinary person who happened to be at the shoot? No, he must be messing with me. For a while after that, I completely forgot about the note Robert had given me. But a few days later, I ran into Robert again at another shoot, and he spoke to me.
Emily, why didn't you text me? I've been waiting this whole time.
Robert, pouting like that, looked almost like a little kid. What? Well, you said it so suddenly. I thought it was some kind of joke.
Jeez.
Robert gave a sheepish smile. But then, his playful expression disappeared, and he looked at me seriously.
I'm not joking, okay? I fell for you at first sight, Emily. I want to be with you.
Seeing his serious expression and hearing his sincere tone, before I knew it, I was nodding. We started texting and went on a few dates. Since Robert was so popular, it was hard for him to make time for dates, and we couldn't meet often. But even if it was just a few minutes between work, he'd come by to see me, and that made me so happy. Robert worked tirelessly, barely getting any rest, but he seemed to find his work fulfilling. He told me about his goal of becoming an exclusive model for a major apparel brand, and I found his ambition inspiring. I wanted to support him. My wish to be by his side and his desire for me to be his #1 supporter aligned, and eventually we got married. Not long after our wedding, when we were at the peak of our happiness, we found out we were expecting a baby. I wanted to keep working as long as I could, but Robert, worried about my health, encouraged me to take early maternity leave. Even with his busy schedule, Robert would come home every day and talk to our baby bump, showing off his doting dad's side. As my belly grew and I entered my final month of pregnancy, Robert made a suggestion about returning to work after giving birth.
If you go back to your current jobs, it'll just be too hectic, right? Why not switch to your dad's company and take over? You'd feel safer being closer to home, wouldn't you?
But I had no intention of taking over my dad's company. I was no longer the sheltered rich girl, Emily. I was an independent adult. When I decided to job hunt in my junior year of college, I had promised myself I wouldn't take over my dad's company. I appreciate your suggestion, but I'm sorry. I have no plans to take over my dad's company. I told him that when I started job hunting, and he agreed with me. I found my current job fulfilling and had no intention of quitting. My dad supported my decision too. Besides, when I told Dad I wouldn't take over, he said the next president would be chosen based on ability, not family ties. So even if I joined his company, I wouldn't become the president. When I explained this, Robert just looked down and fell silent. Then, after a moment, he lifted his head and started scrolling through his phone. Robert? Are you listening? Hey, are you okay? He pushed away my hand as I reached out in concern, stood up, and headed toward the door. Robert? Where are you going?
I just got called in for something urgent.
Without looking back, he said this while putting on his shoes and left the house. Chasing after Robert with my big belly was impossible, so I reluctantly returned to the room. That day, Robert never came back. Several weeks had passed since Robert left. I kept messaging him every day, but he never replied. Where on earth is Robert? What is he doing? One day, filled with anxiety, I suddenly went into labor and was rushed to the hospital. I just want him to be there for the birth. I want him to see our baby's face. I tried reaching out to him, but in the end, Robert never came to the hospital. I gave birth to a healthy baby girl, holding her with a vacant stare. What will happen now? Will Robert ever come back? When I contacted Robert's agency, they told me they hadn't heard from him either. He had suddenly disappeared. Panicking, I turned on the hospital TV. Every news station was covering Robert's disappearance. A few days later, I was discharged with my daughter, whom I named Jessica. I hesitated for a moment in front of our home. Robert must be back. He probably quit his agency to help with raising our baby. I'll scold him a bit, then let him hold Jessica. With that thought, I reached for the doorknob. But when I opened the door, Robert wasn't there. In the dark living room, a single note lay on the table.
My job isn't stable, so I thought if you took over your dad's company, things would be fine even after our baby was born. But if you're not going to do that, I don't have the confidence to support you and the baby forever. Goodbye.
It was Robert's handwriting, clear as day. He had abandoned me. I felt miserable and humiliated. Robert had never truly loved me. I'm hurt. I'm sad. But more than that, I felt rage building inside me. In the pitch black room, I cried out loud. I cried until I thought I couldn't shed another tear. But I couldn't cry forever. I had a responsibility to raise Jessica. Resolving to raise her as a single mother, I immediately started looking for a daycare. My parents, who had stayed in touch since Robert disappeared, hugged me gently and promised to help in any way they could. Fortunately, I quickly found a daycare, and with my parents helping with drop-offs and pickups, I was able to return to work. When I got back to the office, a former junior colleague had become my manager, and the systems had changed, making the environment quite different. I had to relearn a lot from scratch, and the daily fatigue was piling up. But when I got home and saw Jessica's sweet sleeping face, all my exhaustion seemed to vanish. 3 years passed like that, and just as I was getting used to life as a single mother, Robert suddenly contacted me. I had long since forgotten about him and was happy with my family, but seeing his name on my phone screen brought back bad memories. Feeling a wave of disgust, I opened the message.
I'm coming back for a bit. Have some drinks ready to welcome me.
I couldn't comprehend what those words on the screen meant. Who does he think he is? My mind went blank, and I could do nothing but stare at the screen for a while. A week after Robert's message, there was a commotion outside the front door. Jessica had just fallen asleep, and I didn't want her to wake up because of the noise. I opened the door to see what was happening, and there stood Robert, acting like it was perfectly normal for him to be back. A surge of shock, frustration, and anger hit me all at once. I hadn't replied to his message, so I assumed nothing would happen. That's right, he was never someone who followed basic logic. I felt like a heavy stone was pressing down on my already exhausted body. And why is it so noisy? What is he yelling about so excitedly? I'll just stay inside and ignore him until he leaves. If he doesn't leave and starts bothering the neighbors, I'll call the cops. Just as I was about to shut the door, I sensed that Jessica was about to wake up. If this continued, she'd be awake before I could even call the police. I gathered my strength, steeling my nerves, and opened the door again. Robert, Jessica just fell asleep. Could you please be quiet? I said this to him from the doorway, but Robert, clearly agitated, blurted out.
Emily, when did you buy such a fancy car? Even my old salary couldn't cover something like this.
When he turned to face me, I saw a painfully large burn scar on his face, making him look nothing like the heartthrob he used to be.
You must have taken over your dad's company to afford this car, right? Why didn't you tell me sooner? When I heard from my manager that you and your dad ran a big celebrity agency, I knew you had potential. Let's start over. Come on, while you're working, I'll take care of Jessica.
Robert, now a shadow of the once most desired celebrity, edged closer to me. Stop it! Don't come near me. I have no intention of ever dealing with you again. As I backed away, he reached out to grab my arm, but just then, a man appeared from inside the house.
Emily, what's going on? Why are you yelling?
The moment Robert saw his face, he ignored me completely and ran toward the man.
I'm Robert. I used to be a model, and it was my dream to be signed exclusively to your company.
The man who came out of the house was James, the CEO of the fashion company Robert had once admired and dreamed of modeling for. And now, he is my husband. James, who had business dealings with my dad's company, learned from my dad about how Robert had abandoned me and was deeply concerned. Loving kids, James had helped care for Jessica whenever he could despite his busy schedule, and through that, we grew closer and eventually married.
Robert. Oh yeah, I remember that model. Well, if you want to work for my company, contact us through the proper channels.
James said this while taking my hand and trying to lead me back inside, closing the door. But Robert wedged his foot in the doorway, preventing it from closing.
Hey, what do you think you're doing? This is trespassing.
Wait, please, just hear me out.
Even after James warned him, Robert refused to back away.
As I said, if you want to talk, contact the company. Don't make a scene. You'll wake Jessica.
Hearing this, Robert finally noticed that James and I were both wearing matching rings. His anger immediately turned back toward me.
Emily, you married this guy? Are you kidding me? You married him because he's rich, didn't you? How did you even get him to fall for you, you gold-digging tramp? I never filed for divorce. I'm your husband. I didn't sign any papers, and this house is mine. Jessica is my child too.
The divorce is finalized.
Don't lie. I never agreed to my divorce. That means you're cheating on me. And you stole my Emily. Who cares if you're some big shot CEO? You took my woman. If you're such a rich CEO, you can afford a hefty settlement. I'll sue you.
Robert's shouting finally woke Jessica, and she started crying loudly. The divorce is finalized. You disappeared after Jessica was born, so I filed in court and it was approved last year. If you don't believe me, check the records yourself. Now leave. I said this and headed to the bedroom to calm Jessica.
That's the reality. By the way, this house is in Emily's name, so it's not yours. Sure, Jessica might share your DNA, but Emily and I have raised her since the day she was born. You have no right to call yourself her father when you've never been involved in her life. Jessica is my daughter now. Earlier, I considered giving you a chance, but after insulting my wife and child, there's no way I'd ever hire you as a model. Don't ever show your face around us again.
With that, James pushed Robert out the door. As I held Jessica and rubbed her back, tears welled up in my eyes at the words I had just heard from James. Robert, stunned, stumbled away. I watched from the window as he left, then gently laid the now sleeping Jessica back in her bed.
I'm sorry for scaring you.
James said this, pulling me into a gentle hug. With such a dependable family by my side, I knew I'd be okay, even when things got tough. 5 days later, I got a call from the daycare.
Is this Emily? There's a suspicious man outside the daycare demanding we hand over Jessica. He claims he's her real father.
It had to be Robert. Worry for Jessica's safety consumed me, and I rushed to the daycare immediately. When I got there, Robert was yelling, and the teachers were doing their best to handle him. As soon as he saw me, Robert shouted angrily,
Jessica is my daughter. She's my flesh and blood. I have custody. Give her back.
Jessica was undeniably my child, and when I filed for divorce, the court had granted me full custody.
If you claim to be her father, please show us some identification.
One of the teachers tried to calm him, but Robert wouldn't listen.
Shut up. I don't need any ID to prove I'm her father.
He refused to show any identification and kept shouting. Neighbors, curious about the commotion, opened their windows or came outside to see what was happening. Just then, the sound of a police siren broke through the noise. It seemed someone in the neighborhood had called the police. Realizing the police were coming, Robert's bravado vanished, and he ran off in a panic. I'm truly sorry for all the trouble.
It's okay. None of the children were harmed, and we're glad you're safe.
The teacher's kind words lifted a weight off my shoulders.
Also, we verified your custody status when Jessica enrolled.
Her reassuring tone gave me comfort. After that, I explained the situation to the police who arrived. The police advised me to stay cautious for a while and arranged for patrols every few hours. When the officers explained the increased patrols to the crowd of onlookers, the neighbors seemed reassured and gradually returned to their homes. I headed home, holding Jessica in my arms, filled with self-loathing for having scared her once again. By the time I got back, I was completely drained. I thought about putting Jessica to bed early and sleeping alongside her. As I dozed off, the sound of my phone woke me. Robert's name flashed on the screen. I should just ignore it and go back to sleep. I closed my eyes, but the phone wouldn't stop ringing. Frustrated, I reluctantly answered. Hello. What do you want? I'm done dealing with you. Robert ignored my irritated tone and started ranting.
I checked my marriage and it did say that we're divorced, but Jessica is still my child. I have custody. Give her to me. She'd be better off with me than staying with a tramp like you.
What are you talking about? I've told you countless times. I have custody of Jessica. It was granted when I filed for divorce.
Shut up, you kidnapper. You stole my precious Jessica. You're a criminal. If you agree to pay me $5,000 a month in child support, I might not report you.
I was so shocked, I couldn't even speak. Exhausted, I had no desire to argue with him anymore. Instead, I told him to give me his address so I could send important documents. Thinking I was giving up custody, Robert complied and gave me his address. A few days later, I sent copies of Jessica's family registry and the adoption papers showing that James had legally adopted Jessica. When we married, James became Jessica's legal father, even though they weren't biologically related. Unlike Robert, who abandoned us and never showed up for the birth or parenting, James showered Jessica with love and affection. A few days after sending the documents, I woke up one weekend to the sound of loud pounding on the front door. I looked through the peephole to see Robert standing there. Ignoring him wouldn't make him leave. The pounding on the door didn't stop. At this rate, Jessica would wake up. It would also disturb the neighbors. I opened the door slightly, keeping the chain on. What do you want this early in the morning? Stop banging on the door. You're bothering the neighbors. Robert tried to force his hand through the small gap to push the door open, but the chain stopped him.
Emily, what the hell is this paperwork? And what about child support?
Oh, so you got it. As you can see, I've told you over and over. I have custody of Jessica, and her father now is James. Now, please leave. I tried to close the door, but Robert's arm blocked it. Let go.
There's more to it, isn't there? What's this about alimony? I don't owe you any alimony.
Does he seriously not remember what he did when I gave birth to Jessica? He disappeared, ignored all my messages, and even left a note saying he was going off with another woman. Robert's words pushed me past my breaking point. You don't remember? How dare you say that? While I was desperately raising Jessica, where were you? You ran off to another woman and didn't even contact me. You even left a note.
You're such an idiot. Don't you know? You can only claim alimony for up to 3 years after a divorce. The statute of limitations has already passed. I don't owe you a cent. Tough luck, Emily.
Robert said this smugly. Looking at Robert, I let out a sigh and calmly said, You know, if the divorce was caused by infidelity, you can claim alimony for 3 years after the divorce is finalized. Our divorce was finalized 2 years ago. So yes, you still owe me alimony. Who's the one with tough luck now?
You're lying. That's not true.
Robert's face turned pale, his confidence evaporating. He took a few steps back and then collapsed in a heap right in front of the door.
Emily, everything I said before was a lie. That woman, Rachel, deceived me.
Robert began sobbing, launching into a confusing excuse.
Rachel came on to me. She told me to leave you and live with her. If I didn't, she said she'd do something terrible to me. I refused because I love you. Then she burned my face with a lighter. I had no choice but to follow her. She made me fight for custody of Jessica too. Please believe me.
Robert pleaded, his tear-streaked face desperate. If I hadn't known the truth, I might have pitied him, gently touched his scar, and even held him. But I had hired a private investigator over the past week to keep an eye on Robert, making sure Jessica wouldn't be frightened again. I knew that when Robert went home, a flashy young woman was there, doting on him. Earlier, he called that woman Rachel. With the money Rachel earned, Robert went gambling almost every day or spent his nights drinking at pubs. Not only that, when the alcohol ran out, he took out his frustrations on Rachel. I wondered who was really being threatened here, but the investigator said Rachel still seemed happy despite his behavior. She was probably the type of woman drawn to reckless, wasteful men. What people might call a bad boy lover. She and Robert were a perfect match. Robert had always spent money lavishly, and it was unlikely he could lower his lifestyle anytime soon. I wondered where Rachel was getting the money to keep up with Robert's demands, but it turned out to be simple. Rachel was the daughter of a wealthy family, and far from struggling, she earned more than enough to support an extravagant lifestyle. Robert's burn injury was the result of a night he spent drinking. At a pub, he drunkenly played with a lighter near high-proof alcohol. The pub didn't suffer any significant damage, but the incident was briefly mentioned in a small online news article, which the private investigator found. It turned out that Rachel, besides being into bad boys, was also obsessed with good looks. After Robert burned his face, she lost interest in him and threw him out, giving him money for medical bills as a parting gift. As usual, Robert tried to intimidate Rachel with violence, but since his face no longer appealed to her, she didn't meekly endure it like before. Instead, she beat him up and threw him out of the house. Stunned by how quickly she turned on him, Robert ended up wandering the streets. Convinced that we were still married, he came back to my house, hoping to gain my sympathy. But as I had already investigated his actions, his sob story wouldn't work on me. Love? Please. He disappeared the moment he found out I wasn't taking over my dad's company. Robert didn't love me. He loved my dad's money. He was only interested in the wealth that could support him. I gave him a cold look as he collapsed in tears at my doorstep and started to close the door. Realizing his tearful act wasn't working, Robert panicked and surrendered.
Wait. Okay, I get it. I'm sorry. Please, just let me off the hook for the alimony.
Even as he apologized, he must have heard the sound of police sirens approaching. Robert's loud yelling on a weekend morning disturbed my neighborhood, and Jessica woke up, scared and crying. Frustrated, James called the police. Robert was arrested on the spot for harassment, assault, and attempted kidnapping of Jessica. Later, I also demanded alimony from Robert's mistress, Rachel.
That's just pocket change to me.
Rachel wired the full amount that very same day without hesitation. It felt unsettling to see how little alimony seemed to matter to someone wealthy, but I decided to let it go and consider this the final break. After Robert was taken away by the police, he avoided detention but signed a pledge promising to stay away from Jessica forever. He also signed an agreement to pay child support and alimony in a lump sum. When an officer delivered the documents and explained the situation to me, I felt relieved that Jessica was finally safe. Although Robert agreed to pay in full, he didn't have the money and ended up asking his parents for help. His parents paid the full amount on his behalf. They told me Robert had started working a part-time job at a supermarket to repay them. Robert's parents apologized to me sincerely for his behavior. But Robert, unable to let go of his days as a high-earning model, couldn't stand the idea of saving money little by little. He quickly quit the job and began working in nightlife. Leveraging his former model status and smooth talking skills, he rapidly increased sales and managed to pay off his debt to his parents. He even became famous on social media again. I accidentally stumbled across one of his posts just last week. However, just moments ago, I saw a new post saying Robert had gotten into trouble for hitting a customer and was fired. His bad reputation spread nationwide almost instantly, and he was blacklisted from the industry. Even pubs and places Robert had never been banned him. Social media truly is a scary thing. Several years have passed since then. Luckily, Jessica has no memories of Robert, and now that she's older, she loves James as her real father. Jessica started working as a kid model for James' apparel company 2 years ago, and this year, she's entering first grade. On her first day of school, Jessica, holding both my hand and James, was all smiles, wearing a custom-made couture outfit designed just for this occasion.
You really are a superstar kid model. No one wears my company's original designs as well as you do.
Oh, you're such a doting dad. But I get it. Jessica is the cutest in the world.
You're just as much of a doting mom, Emily.
As we chatted, we took photos of Jessica during the ceremony. I noticed other parents and children glancing at her.
That outfit is adorable.
Isn't that Jessica, the kid model?
I heard a few whispers here and there.
Daddy. Mommy. Over here.
Careful, you'll trip if you run.
James' cheerful voice came from beside me. I know Jessica will grow up so quickly, And one day, she'll probably be taller than me. She'll laugh a lot, cry a lot, and grow up knowing love. Being able to watch Jessica grow, with James by my side, makes these simple, everyday moments feel overwhelmingly precious. A gentle breeze blew by, almost as if to hide the tear that slid down my cheek.